his eye. I didn't say, what are you looking so sad about, Jack?
I'm surprised. I mean, I'm really insulted. I mean, that's not right what you just said.
What do you mean, what I just said?
I mean, I'm getting a drink of water. I'm late getting home, but you talk. I said something about the greatest heavyweight champ, man. I'm a hometown man, and you talk about Joe Louis, man. Joe Louis wouldn't be nothing for me. Joe, I tell you, Joe, do you think you would have stood a chance with me?
Well, Clay, one time during my career, I was on a Formula One tour.
I would have been a bum compared to you.
Well, you've been on the tour. Oh.
What's happening, my people? It's Cast Sports again, back for another afternoon with the family. That's right. You know what time it is. If it's Monday through Friday, 2 p.m., it's the Box Story bringing you all that boxing history. Boxing is the greatest sport of them all. That's why we love it, can't get enough of it. Salute to Miss Cass, because without her, none of this would be possible. Salute to Technique. Salute to everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cass Sports, the Box Story. Today, boxers who lost their fortunes. We can't list all of them, but that's right, Technique. It's a sad thing to see. We got about 20 boxers who lost all their money. And some of them made it back, made a lot of money back, became millionaires again. Some of them didn't make out so good. Some of them wound up in prison. Some of them passed away. We're going to cover about 20 of them today. Not just lost their fortunes, had their career right in front of them. Big fights lined up and just messed up. So yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Bruce Gas, Boxing, Jazz, and more in the building. And then we're going to take a look at Buster Douglas and Mike Tyson. Deep dive into that fight. Was it similar to George Foreman and Joe Frazier? You had the big fighter, little fighter in both situations. What's short fighter? Were they similar or were they not similar? We're going to look at that today. And then some of the biggest upsets today. But salute, technique, and Brucey Gas, boxing, jazz, and more. But for the fighter today, we're going to have a fight that didn't happen, okay? And we're going to dig into why it didn't happen. But it's Monday. Raymond Muratalla won the big fight Saturday. Not an upset. I've been saying that all along. If Muratalla wins it, I was leaning toward Cruz, but if Muratalla won, not an upset at all. And then this is fight week for another big. Man, if we can get months like this all year, we'll be okay. We got Shakur and Teofimo this weekend. Keyshawn Davis and Jermaine Ortiz is the co-main. We got Carlos Adames defending his belt on the card. I believe Shushu is on the card. So, yeah, another big week of boxing, fight week. But how was everybody's weekend? Hope everybody had a nice, safe one. Man, they dumped some snow on us. Wow. Yesterday. And then after the snow, ice came right behind it. Kind of treacherous out there. So everybody in the northeast part of the country, be careful and safe out there with all that snow out there. Nice and sunny today, but it's kind of icy, so not melting too rapidly. Okay, but let's get into our fight of the day. I still did my walk though. Got to get your exercise. Yeah. Started to turn back, but I toughed it on out. Had to walk in the street though, but always walk facing the traffic. You know, I seen some people on the other side walking with the traffic coming up behind them. Oh no, that's a no-no. Always walk. If you got to be out there getting your exercise or whatever, just walking. And when the sidewalks is all covered with snow and you got to walk on the side of the street, and always walk facing the traffic. I saw a guy out there in a wheelchair. Now he should have just stayed in, and he was on the side with the traffic coming up behind him. So, wow. But I didn't say anything because, people nowadays, you got to mind your business. But let's get into the fight of the day. The drunk Irishman in the building. Salute. Is the drunk Irishman. We're going to start out with the fight of the day right now. And then we're going to talk about, I got like 20 boxers that lost everything. But so, like I said, some of them bounced back, and got millions again. Some of them didn't, but we're going to talk about them. But first, the fight of the day. Okay, for today's fight of the day, we're going to talk about a fight that didn't happen and why it didn't happen. Jack Dempsey versus Harry Wills. How come the Manasseh Mauler and the Black Panther never fought? Okay, let's get into it. Now, what challenges did Jack Dempsey face in trying to fight Black heavyweight contender Harry Wills, and why didn't the fight happen? Some historians have it wrong. Some historians say Jack Dempsey ducked him and drew the color bar, but that was not true, and we're going to cover it today. Okay. Now, the New York State and federal governments leaned on every single major promoter and helped block the fight of Harry Wills and Jack Dempsey. Jack Dempsey fought black fighters on his way up, and he agreed to fight the number one contender, HEIR Wills, while he was champion. The federal government and the New York state government blocked the fight, and no promoter would put on the fight anywhere, okay? No promoter would put it on anywhere. Now, Jack Dempsey fought black fighters during his career and had no trouble fighting one for his title. There's no doubt Jack Johnson had enormous social impact, Jack Johnson, but it didn't advance the cause of black athletes a bit. It set it back decades. As a direct result of Jack Johnson's antics, legendary trainer Jack Blackburn said HEIR Wills was denied a shot at the title in the years following Johnson's defeat by Jess Willett. And no black fighter was allowed a heavyweight title shot until the great Joe Louis arose 22 years later. Now, Jack Dempsey, contrary to popular belief, had agreed to fight HEIR Wills, the Black Panther, and again had fought many black fighters on his way up. The United States government, however, blocked the Dempsey-Wills title fight. Dempsey told the New York Post in 1953, "When HEIR Wills challenged me, Tex Rickard would have nothing to do with the fight. Tex said he had instructions from Washington not to promote a mixed race fight for the heavyweight title." Jack Dempsey did not fight Sam McVay, Sam Langford, or Joe Jeanette, other black fighters of the period, because none of them were the number one or mandatory contender. Only HEIR Wills achieved that status during Dempsey's reign as champion. And as noted, Dempsey agreed to fight Wills, but forces outside the control of either fighter blocked the fight. Now, Gene Tunney, on the other hand, never faced one black fighter in his entire career. Jack Dempsey desperately tried to fight number one contender HEIR Wills. Dempsey defended his title on September 14th, 1923. He did not defend it again until 3+ years later, on September 23rd, 1926. Why does that happen? Primarily because the number one contender in 1924 and 1925 was the great Black Panther, HEIR Wills, and the government blocked the fight. And Dempsey said if he couldn't fight HEIR Wills, he wasn't fighting anyone. So he didn't fight for 3 years. Okay? He didn't fight for 3 years. Jack Dempsey did. It cost him against what he did fight Gene Tunney too, because he had been out of the ring for 3 years. Now Jack Dempsey, again, contrary to popular belief, had tried to defend this title, as he should have, against the mandatory contender, HEIR Wills. And the argument over that continued through all of 1924, 1925, and early 1926, until Dempsey finally gave up trying to fight Wills and agreed to fight Gene Tunney instead, because he saw that he just wasn't going to be permitted to fight Wills. Interestingly, the New York State Athletic Commission threatened to strip Dempsey if he fought anyone but Wills, the number one contender, while at the same time, the governor of New York did the opposite and blocked the fight. So the New York State Athletic Commission, one of the major sanctioning bodies along with the NBA back then, threatened to strip Dempsey if he didn't fight Wills. At the same time, the governor of New York was blocking the fight. Crazy. Again, Jack Dempsey had fought many black fighters on his way up. He had no use for ducking anyone, black or white. When Dempsey became champion, Under pressure, he originally said he would adhere to the color line, but when a black fighter, Wills, became the #1 contender, Dempsey tried and wanted to fight him, both for legacy and pride. Jack Dempsey feared no one, and for money, because the purse would have been huge for that fight. But the United States government, however, blocked the Dempsey-Wills title fight. Dempsey said years later, "I would have fought Wills, but nobody would promote it." A number of boxing historians consider HEIR Wills the worst victim of the color line drawn by white heavyweight champions. Though Jack Dempsey, who had fought black fighters, did agree to fight Wills. Both Wills and Dempsey signed contracts to meet for the undisputed heavyweight title in 1925, and the governor of the state of New York, under pressure from the federal government, canceled the fight, fearing race riots would follow the fight. For compensation for losing his title shot, Wills received $50,000 for the cancellation, which is equivalent to between $800,000 and $900,000 today, just below $1 million. That's what they gave Wills for blocking his title shot. Now, there is some evidence as well that the finances for the fight were shaky, and that was another reason the fight fell apart. Dempsey and Wills then tried again and signed a second time to fight in Indiana. After the New York fight was blocked, Dempsey asked his promoter, Tex Rickard, to put the fight on in the Western United States, where he felt influence from Washington would be less effective. But Rickard claimed he could not find a venue. So yeah, they actually tried to fight in Indiana. Dempsey and Wills tried to fight in Indiana in 1926, again, only. When that fight also failed due to heavy federal government pressure, did Dempsey finally give up and sign to fight Gene Tunney. Dempsey, who believed his record would be slighted if he failed to fight the #1 contender, tried to fight Wills for years. Dempsey told writer Peter Heller in 1970 that after political pressure stopped the fight in New York, a venue could not be found for it. They wouldn't let you fight no place, Dempsey said. Rickard wanted to make the fight, but there was no place that you could put it on, no venues. I wanted to fight him, but they wouldn't let you fight no place. And no place in Europe was suggested or possible. No one ever offered such a fight in Europe. Neither man ever fought. Dempsey or Wills never fought in Europe for their entire careers. And no one fought for the heavyweight title in Europe until the 60s, for over another 40 years, right? The only European heavyweight champion had been Bob Fitzsimmons, and he fought in the 1800s, and he fought in the United States, right? So no one fought for the heavyweight title in Europe until after that, until the 60s. Now, Jack Johnson first won the title in Australia, but during Dempsey and Wills' era, no one fought in Europe for the heavyweight title until the 60s, over 40 years after that. And then the Hall of Fame acknowledged Dempsey tried to break the color line and fight Wills. It is an urban myth that Jack Dempsey didn't really want to fight Wills, ignoring the real record. The Hall of Fame states, while heavyweight champion Jack Dempsey welcomed the fight against HEIR Wills, and they both signed contracts a couple of times to face each other. The governor of the state of New York canceled the fight, fearing that race riots would follow the fight. For compensation, Wills received $50,000, which is close between $800,000 and $900,000 today. Dempsey wanted to defend his title against the best contender, which happened to be a black man. Okay? And Dempsey tried to cross the color bar. The publication Fight City put it best. Those who argue that the Manasseh Mauler drew the color line might be interested to know he did in fact sign a contract to meet HEIR Wills on 2 different occasions, and that he had fought plenty of black opponents before. Dempsey himself appeared willing to take Wills on, and for a whole lot of money too. And then Dempsey was in no hurry. If he couldn't fight who he wanted to, Dempsey said he's not fighting anybody. He said if he couldn't fight HEIR Wills, then he wasn't fighting anybody. What's up, Kong? How are you today? Saad Muhammad ended up destitute and broke. Yeah, we talked about him recently. Leon Spinks, Iran Bartley. Yep. I think I got them on here too. But salute, Kong. How are you today? Yeah, we're going to get to that in moments. We finishing up the fight of the day. Well, the fight of the day today was a fight that didn't happen. We're discussing why it didn't happen. Now, Jack, once they wouldn't let Jack Dempsey fight HEIR Wills, he didn't fight for 3 years because he got pissed off and said, well, I'm not fighting anybody. Dempsey was a genuinely tough man who did not enjoy being bullied by anyone and told what to do. And he deeply resented the interference with his intention to fight Wills. The increasingly bitter arguments with his manager, Doc Kearns, over Dempsey's unwillingness to fight a lesser contender than Wills for lesser money is part of what led Dempsey to fire Kearns in 1925. Dempsey had plenty of money, and so he could sit out because Dempsey had plenty of money and was happy living in Hollywood. Further, Dempsey made plenty of money with boxing exhibitions. He made a lot of money from product endorsements. He was really one of the first boxers to get product endorsements. He made a lot of money off of that. And by working in movies, okay? Dempsey also enjoyed traveling. And in 1925, he married actress Estelle Taylor. So Dempsey was perfectly content to sit if he couldn't fight who he wanted to fight and who he should have fought. And the longer he sat, the easier it got to sit. Dempsey would later say, I found that it is easy to get up and run when you're a kid trying to fight your way out of the hobo camps. It is a lot harder when you wake up in $1 million mansion in silk sheets next to one of the most beautiful women in the world. Yeah, Jack Dempsey, not Marvin Hagler, was the first one to say that about the silk sheets. Okay, Hagler said it too, but Jack Dempsey was the first one to say it. It's harder when you wake up in $1 million mansion in silk sheets next to one of the most beautiful women in the world. Yeah, so yeah, the government blocked that fight. Jack Dempsey wanted it bad. He didn't want to say it that he ducked anybody. Dempsey tried in every way he could to fight HEIR Wills, but the United States government leaned on the promoters, and both times a fight was made, pressure prevented it. An enraged Dempsey refused to fight at all, and that cost him dearly when he returned to the ring 3 years later to face Gene Tunney. All right. Here we go. The fight of the day was a fight that didn't happen. Jack Dempsey, the Manasseh Mauler versus the Black Panther. Jack Dempsey versus HEIR Wills. Didn't happen. And they did, when they blocked the fight, they did compensate Wills. They gave him $50,000, which in the 20s is equivalent to like $800,000, between $800,000 and $900,000 today. Almost $1 million. So I guess Wills would have rather had to fight. Just think if he would have won the heavyweight championship, how much he would have been worth then. But you know, he did get something out of it. But let's go to I got like 20 boxers who lost everything. 20 boxers who lost everything. Let's get to that. How's everybody? It's Monday. Anybody living in the northeast area of the country is catching it right now. A lot of snow out there. Then last night it turned to ice down here in Maryland. Treacherous out there, man. Treacherous. Mm-hmm. Went on my daily walk and those people still won't slow down. Flying up and down the road. But it's all good. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna look at some boxers who lost everything now. Yeah, I had Joe Louis and Sugar Ray Robinson on the thumbnail. Both of them did. Joe Louis was because of the government. Remember, we talked about this last week. The two fights and the interest went up to like $500,000, and the fights they taxed him on, he didn't earn anything off of them because he donated the money from both fights. And guess who he donated it to? The United States government, the war effort, and veterans groups. Who is that but the United States government, right? And they still said he owed him $500,000. So that's why he got back in the ring. Because of that. But okay, let's get into these boxers who lost everything. But yeah, that was very nasty work. Yeah, Leon Spinks too, Tom. Yeah. Iran Barkley. Both homeless at one point, yeah. Leon's son actually was a champion too, Corey. Mm-hmm. Corey Spinks. Okay, now boxers aren't the only professional athletes to end up losing their fortunes and health, but they're certainly among the most visible. For some reason, pugilists have a habit of financial and physical difficulty after hanging up their gloves. Perhaps one of the reasons is because there's no players' union in the sport of boxing, and pension plans aren't available to most participants. But after making millions of dollars during their careers, you would think most of them should be able to sustain themselves for the rest of their lives. You would think, but this isn't the case though, as several of the world's top boxers have found themselves in trouble over the years after making millions in the ring. Most of them managed to dig themselves out of it, but some former boxers aren't as lucky. Now, as well as losing their fortunes, some boxers lose their mental and or physical health. These former warriors are arguably worse off than their counterparts who have blown their earnings. Those boxers who have blown millions of dollars often lose some of their cash to shady promoters, as well as in divorce settlements and by paying child support. Some guys just like the lifestyle that the fame and fortune brings them, and they end up spending the majority of their bank accounts on drugs, alcohol, women, cars, and homes. They're reckless with their spending, and sooner or later, it catches up with them. Other boxers find themselves owing back taxes to the government, and then returning to the ring to earn the money to pay off the debt. That's what happened to Joe Louis. There are cases of boxers going from rags to riches, back to rags again. But on the bright side, some of them have fought their way out of trouble and are now leading comfortable lives. Yes, some of them have made good, nice comebacks. This list of boxers we're going to talk about today consists of those who have lost either their money, health, mental health, or a combination of all three. All right, here we go. Frank Bruno. Yeah, Joe, he used to box lots of exhibitions. He sure did, Kong. That's why the government Shameful the way they treated him. Yeah, Jesse Owens too, the track star. Yes, they were. Yeah, Jesse Owens was in that 36. That was the same year Max Melling upset Joe Louis. Was the same year Jesse Owens won those 4 gold medals. Yeah, appreciate you, Carl. Okay, Frank Bruno. Former world heavyweight champion Frank Bruno of Great Britain may still have some money left in the bank, but he's definitely not the same man he was when he started boxing. Bruno has been in and out of mental hospitals since retiring in 1995. He had to fight off a knife-wielding attacker during one of his stays. The 63-year-old had a record of 40 wins, 5 losses, with 38 knockouts, and is best remembered for being stopped twice by Mike Tyson. Now, Bruno admitted to cocaine use and was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Now, he remains a popular figure in Britain, but he's still fighting mental illness. Frank Bruno. Joe Louis. Joe Louis. Yeah, a lot of them did get exploited by promoters and bad divorces. Yep, exactly. That happened to not just boxers, a lot of athletes. Those bad divorces, They want to get those pretty models and everything. They wouldn't look at them twice if they were just working a 9 to 5. Okay, Joe Louis. Joe Louis is regarded as one of the greatest heavyweights ever after compiling a record of 66 wins, 3 losses, with 52 knockouts. The Brown Bomber held the title between 1937 and 1949 and earned approximately $4.5 million during his illustrious career. Louis, born in Lafayette, Alabama, was drafted into the Army while at the peak of his career, but found he owed the tax man quite a bit of money when he returned to the United States. Louis's managers took a good chunk of his money too, and he also had a large family to take care of. Now, once he found out he was in debt to the IRS, he was never really able to dig himself out and had to keep fighting to pay the government off. He even turned to pro wrestling after retiring for good in 1951 and ended up working as a greeter at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. Louis died at the age of 61 in 1985, and he is a member of the International Boxing Hall of Fame, of course. And former opponent, Max Melling, helped pay for Joe Louis's funeral after Louis found himself in more financial trouble because of a drug addiction. And Joe also spent several months in a psychiatric hospital in 1970. Joe Louis. Ricky Burns. There's Ricky. Ricky Burns. Yeah, 25 of them. Arguably the best ever. Ricky Burns. Now, Ricky Burns of Coatbridge, Scotland, declared bankruptcy in March of 2015 after racking up more than $500,000 in debts. He told the press his assets were about $300 and lost a lot of money by taking his former promoter, Frank Warren, to court. Wow. Made more than $500,000, and he told the press at one point his assets were about $300. Wow. The 42-year-old had a record of 37 wins, 4 losses, 1 draw, 11 knockouts. And Burns is a former 2-weight world champion. Ricky Burns. Rocky Lockridge blew all his money. There's Rocky Lockridge. Yeah, Holmes had 13, Ali had 9. 9 of them. 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 9 of Yeah, Holmes had a nice little run too. So I thought he beat Spinks both times. That's what broke up his streak. I think it should have been kept going, still going. But the judges didn't think so. So, yeah. Yeah, Rocky had a rough time. Let's talk about Rocky. Rocky Lockwood of Tacoma, Washington, is a former WBA super featherweight world title holder who went 44 wins, 9 losses in the ring with 36 knockouts. He won the title in 1984 by stopping Roger Mayweather in the first round and reportedly made $2.5 million during his boxing career. The 67-year-old Lockwood appeared on an Arts and Entertainment Network reality show titled Intervention. It was shown breaking down while his family held an intervention for him. Lockwood became addicted to drugs after his career ended in 1992 and became homeless and also suffered a stroke. And Lockwood had planned one day to become a boxing trainer. Leon Spinks, like Kong said. Leon, yeah. Leon Spinks. Leon Spinks from St. Louis, Missouri, will always be remembered for one fight, upsetting Muhammad Ali in 1978 for the world heavyweight title in just his 8th pro fight. The former Olympic gold medalist, known as Neon Leon, retired with a record of 26 wins, 17 losses, 3 draws, with 14 knockouts, and earned an estimated $4.5 million in his ring career. And 20 years after beating Ali, Leon was homeless and had been arrested several times, mainly on drug charges. And Leon claims that he spent most of his boxing earnings on drugs at one point. And at one point, he was working in Columbus, Nebraska as a janitor at a local YMCA. Leon has since passed away, and his son, Corey Spinks, is a former middleweight champion. Yep, Corey is retired from boxing too, but he was a former champion. Leon's son, yep. Darius Michaelzewski lost everything during his career. Boxers that lost everything. Darius Michaelzewski. There's Darius. Darius Michaelzewski of Poland. He's a former world cruiserweight and light heavyweight champion. He retired with a record of 48 wins, just 2 losses, with 38 knockouts, and about $35 million in his pocket. And Darius went unbeaten in his first 12 years in the ring. But he was a loser in a couple of divorce cases outside the ring. His ex-wives drained half of his earnings, and the 57-year-old Michaelzewski said he spent the other half on racehorses, homes, and cars. Michaelzewski's only 2 pro losses came in his last 2 fights before he retired in 2005. Won 42 straight, then lost his last 48. He won 48 straight, then lost his last 2 fights and retired. And also had 38 knockouts. Darius Michaelzewski. Here's another one. Cone said, Iran Barkley. Was homeless at one time. Iran Barkley. Oh, Galata ended up driving trucks. Wow. Went from the ring to driving trucks. He should have made a pretty good piece of money in those 2 bull fights, Wow. Iran Barkley. 65-year-old Iran the Blade Barkley of the Bronx, New York, won the WBA light heavyweight title during his career, along with the IBF super middleweight and WBC middleweight belts. I think he took both of them from the hitman, Hearns, right? Barkley retired with a record of 42 wins, 12 losses, along with 27 knockouts. Now, Barkley reportedly made $5 million in his fisting exploit. And he's best remembered for knocking out middleweight champion Thomas the Hitman Hearns in 1988 in a huge upset, and then beating Hearns again by a split decision in the rematch. And I believe that was for the other champion. He beat Hearns in 2 title fights. I believe it was in 2 different divisions. Mm-hmm. Beat the Hitman twice, knocked him out twice. No, split decision in the second one. Knocked him out in the first one. Barkley also took on the likes of Roberto Duran, Michael Nunn, Nigel Benn, Jerry Coetzee, Trevor Berbick, and James Lights Out Tony. And Iran retired in 1996 after 6 straight losses. The Blade was reported to be homeless and living on handouts in 2010 before moving into a halfway house and trying to get back on his feet. Iran Barkley. Radar. El Radar. Wilfred Benitez. Yep. There's Wilfred. Boxers who lost everything. Technique says Joe Louis is the last heavyweight Rocky Marciano. This thing keeps jumping. No, I didn't get to read it. Okay, let's move on. Where are we? Wilfred, El Radar, Wilfred Benitez. Wilfredo Benitez of Puerto Rico holds a boxing record that most likely will never be broken, as he won the WBA junior welterweight title when he was just 17 years old in 1976, I think. 1976. I knew he was only 17, 76 or 77. Now, El Radar took the title by beating 30-year-old veteran Antonio Cervantes, becoming the youngest world champion in boxing history, and still is. Benitez turned pro 2 years earlier at 15 and went on to face the likes of Carlos Palomino, Bruce Curry, Sugar Ray Leonard, Thomas Hearns, and Roberto Duran, 3 of the 4 kings. For all the 4 kings except Hagler, got a win against Roberto Duran. Now, El Radar retired in 1990 with a record of 53 wins, 8 losses, 1 draw, with 31 knockouts. But 7 of his losses came in his last 16 fights. And Benitez earned approximately $6 million during his ring career and ended up with dementia and being taken care of by his sister, who has since passed away. His sister has. Benitez receives government assistance and donations to get by and spends most of his time now in a wheelchair. It's been alleged that Benitez's father mismanaged a lot of his son's money during his career. But El Radar also spent quite a bit of it himself. Benitez won 3 world titles during his career and is a member of the International Boxing Hall of Fame. He's the youngest junior welterweight and the youngest junior middleweight to win a championship, right? Technique says Joe Louis is the best heavyweight, Rocky Marciano 2, and Ali 3. Definitely all 3 top 5 Technique. Ain't no doubt about that. Yeah. Honorable mention, Larry Holmes and Lennox Lewis. Yeah. That might be the top 5 right there. The Technique name. Joe Louis, Rocky Marciano, Ali, Larry Holmes, and Lennox Lewis. You could make a good argument for that. Okay, Kong says his top 5 is Jack Johnson, Joe Louis, Cassius Clay / Ali, 64-67. Larry Holmes and Lennox Lewis. Y'all basically got the same. Kong just traded out Rocky Marciano for Jack Johnson. So Technique and Kong had the same top 5, except Technique got Rocky Marciano and Kong got Jack Johnson. But basically the same. Make a good argument for both of those. Yeah, being the top 5. No doubt. Okay, yeah, Benitez, he is in the International Boxing Hall of Fame, though. Boxers who lost everything. Okay, next is Riddick Bowe. Yeah, Riddick Bowe. He kidnapped. He went crazy. I don't know what happened to Big Daddy. Bear with me for a moment. Equipment malfunction. Take 1 minute. Yeah, I don't know what happened to Big Daddy. He just lost his mind. Kidnapped his family. I think he drove from North Carolina to Maryland with him. And he spent some time in federal prison for that. Mm-hmm. Joined the Marines and stayed all of 3 days. Yeah, Riddick. Let's talk about Riddick. Because he makes the list. Boxers who lost everything. I saw something on him yesterday. He was talking, and wow, he's in bad shape, man. You know, he's one of the fighters where you got to really look at him and concentrate to understand what he's saying, man. Yeah. Riddick, okay, let's go. Riddick Bowe is next. After El Radar. Okay, here we go. I was having a little trouble here. But we're back. Yeah, Leon Spinks. Iran Barkley. Okay, here we go. Riddick Bowe is next. Riddick Big Daddy Bowe of Brooklyn, New York, is a former undisputed world heavyweight champion who was beaten just once in his pro career. The 58-year-old retired with a record of 43 wins, just 1 loss, with 33 knockouts, and earned an estimated $50 million with his fists during his career. Riddick's only defeat came at the hands of Evander Holyfield, but he avenged it. He had already beaten him once, and then he beat him again by knockout in the trilogy fight. Both spent most of his money on family members, friends, cars, and homes, and at one point had to sell his boxing memorabilia at flea markets. Bowe claimed some of his money was lost due to bad advice from business advisors. He won the silver medal at the 1988 Olympics when he was stopped in the second round by Lennox Lewis. Bowe is one of 13 children, and he joined the Marines after retiring, but he quit just 3 days later. Quit the Marines just 3 days later. Now, Bowe has had several run-ins with the law and was charged with kidnapping his estranged wife and their children. He eventually served 17 months in federal prison and was last seen in the ring back in 2008. Bowe was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 2015. Riddick Bowe. Yep. Yeah. Both of them pretty good technique. I ain't mad at neither one of them. You or Collins. Okay, next is Felix Trinidad. Tito. Yep, boxers who lost everything. Tito Trinidad. 53-year-old Felix Trinidad of Puerto Rico turned pro at the age of 17 and retired with a record of 42 wins, just 3 losses, with 35 knockouts in 2008. Tito is a former welterweight and junior middleweight world champion and a member of the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Trinidad reportedly went broke in 2014 after one of his business advisors blew $63 million of his money on government bonds that more or less became worthless. But after making a deal with the bank, Trinidad was reportedly allowed to reclaim his assets as a way to generate income. Wow. Trevor Berbick. Yeah, he crashed hard. Trevor did. Trevor Berbick. There's Trevor. Yeah, he came down hard. Yeah, technique. Like you said at the beginning, a lot of them, and it's sad, man. Trevor Berbick. Former heavyweight champion Trevor Berbick was a boxer who seemed to lose the plot somewhere along the way. Berbick beat Muhammad Ali by decision in Ali's final fight of his career and was later knocked out by Mike Tyson in 1986 when Tyson became the youngest heavyweight champion at the age of 20. So it's a couple of historic fights Berbick was in. He was in Muhammad Ali's last fight of his career, and when Mike Tyson became the youngest fighter to win the heavyweight title, was against Berbick. Now, Berbick had won the WBC crown earlier that year when Tyson beat him by a decision over Pinkland Thomas. And Berbick retired with a record of 49 wins, 11 losses, 1 draw, with 33 knockouts. Now, Berbick had several problems with the law and was sentenced to 5 years in prison in 1992 for sexually assaulting his family's babysitter. 5 years later, Trevor violated parole and was deported from the United States. Berbick somehow made it back to the state, but was deported again in 2002. Berbick was involved in a feud with former opponent and champion Larry Holmes, and the two were filmed when they got into a street brawl in 1991. But Trevor just crashed hard. Another feud resulted in Berbick's death when he was murdered in Jamaica in October of 2006 at the age of 52. One of the two assailants turned out to be his 20-year-old nephew, who received life in prison. Here's another one that crashed hard too. He didn't exactly lose his fortune, but he had a lot of big fights lined up. Bright future, Edwin Valero. That's him in the yellow shirt in the middle there, Edwin Valero. Yeah. Kong Smith Berbick got drop kicked by Larry Holmes. Wow. I've never seen that film of them two fight. Yeah. Right, Kong. I went over there Friday. Floyd is still the youngest lineal champion. Tyson is the youngest heavyweight titleist. WBC, exactly right. Went over that Friday, exactly right. Edwin Valero. Yeah, Kong knows his stuff. Okay, Edwin Valero, that's him in the yellow in the middle. Edwin Valero of Venezuela is another boxer who apparently lost his mind at one point. Valero was 28 years old in 2010 and had a pro record of 27 wins, no losses, with 27 knockouts. Every one of his fights ended in knockout, right? He was the current WBC lightweight champion and a former WBA super featherweight title holder. Valero was known as a bit of a street thug and somebody who took a liking to drugs and alcohol, but he had everything going for him as a boxer, and multi-million-dollar fights were on the horizon. Had one with Manny. Him and Manny was on a collision course back in the 2000s. Yes, they were. He had multi-million-dollar fights on the horizon. Everything was lost when the police discovered the body of his 24-year-old wife in April of 2010. Valero was arrested as the prime suspect and allegedly admitted to the police that he killed her. The next morning, he was found hanging by his pants in his jail cell and was pronounced dead in an apparent suicide. Wow. Thomas the Hitman Hearns. Thomas the Hitman Hearns, yep. International Boxing Hall of Fame member Thomas the Hitman Hearns and the Motor City Cobra is one of the best boxers in history and participated in some epic battles with the likes of Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, Wilfredo Benitez, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, Virgil Hill, and Iran Barker. The 67-year-old from Memphis, born in Memphis, Tennessee, grew up in Detroit. He retired in 2006 with a record of 61 wins, 5 losses, 1 draw, with 48 knockouts under his belt. Hearns also managed to win 8 world championships in 6 different weight divisions and made about $40 million during his career. And this was in the 80s. You know, 40 million in the 80s probably equivalent to like 6 digits in the millions in 2026, I would think. Now, Hearns ended up in debt when the tax man informed him that he owed $250,000 back taxes. He had to auction off his boxing memorabilia and other personal possessions to pay off the IRS in 2010. Hearns also spent a considerable amount of money by supporting his family members over the years. And Hearns' son Ronald was also a professional boxer. And Hearns reportedly was a reserve officer with the Detroit Police Department after his boxing career. Yep. The hitman. Evander Holyfield. Yep, he lost everything. Evander did. Randolph Turpin. Yep. Former undisputed world heavyweight and cruiserweight champion, Evander the Real Deal Holyfield, born in Atmore, Alabama, lost quite a bit more than part of his heir during his pro boxing career. It's estimated that the Real Deal made approximately $250 million in the ring and lost just about all of it, mainly due to dishing out child support to his 11 children from 6 different mothers. Wow, 11 children from 6 different mothers. His numerous divorces have also cost him a pretty penny. The 63-year-old Holyfield has a career record of 44 wins, 10 losses, 2 draws, 29 knockouts. And he had a habit of returning to the ring when he needed money. His last fight was in 2011, though. He had his 109-room, $10 million mansion foreclosed in 2008 and also donated part of his earnings to the church. And number one, well, not number one, he still got a couple more, but Mike Tyson is next, near the top. Iron Mike, there he is. Yeah, Kong. We had 11 children from 6 different women. Wow. Evander? Talk about playing the field. Okay. Iron Mike Tyson. Iron Mike Tyson retired from boxing as a former undisputed heavyweight champion with a record of 50 wins, 6 losses, 44 by knockout. It's estimated that Tyson's fortune reached close to $400 million during his career. And yes, he blew most of it on drugs, alcohol, cars, homes, women, divorces, and child support. Yeah, that'll do it. That'll blow 400 million, all that stuff. Mike was doing a lot. We're going to talk about Mike later, too. Now, the 48-year-old from Brooklyn, 59 now, 59 years old from Brooklyn, New York, was one of the highest paid athletes of his generation and also made a ton of money from endorsements. Tyson claims his former promoter, Don King, took him for about $100 million, but the pair settled out of court in 2003 for only $14 million. I guess Mike said, it's Don King, I'm getting something from it. Mike said, I'm definitely not gonna get no $100 million from Don, so I'll take the $14 million. But Mike filed for bankruptcy because of his debts and took fights to pay off the IRS. Over the years, Mike has been able to earn money by writing his autobiography, appearing in movies, and starring in a one-man Broadway-style show and exhibitions with Roy Jones Jr. and Jake Paul. They might made about 40 mil in the Jake Paul fight. Yeah. It wasn't bad. Okay, next is Scott Harrison. Got a couple more. Scott Harrison. Okay. Okay, let's get, we got like 3 more. Get these then. This thing is acting up. Scott Harrison. Now, Scott Harrison, 2 reigns as a world featherweight champion don't get a guy as far as they used to. The native Scotsman was at or near the top of the 126-pound world for 3 solid years in the early days of the new century. But his mastery of combat in the ring didn't extend to handling the business and other affairs on the other side of the road. Scott Harrison spent a long time behind bars thanks to recurring issues with substance abuse and saw several homes repossessed during the ring hiatus that stretched from his final title fight in 2005 to an initially successful return 7 years later. Sugar Ray Robinson lost everything. Sugar Ray. Yep. Ray Robinson. Now, he's considered by many to be the greatest boxer of all time, but the original Sugar Ray wasn't at all immune to financial troubles in spite of the virtuoso skill that yielded 174 wins against just 19 losses and 6 draws and 109 knockouts in the 100 knockout club. Sugar Ray Robinson. A series of ring purses in excess of $4 million were not enough to stave off a string of bad fortune after the close of his fight career that included failed relationships, cursed businesses, and the long arm of the IRS. Signs of trouble were visible as early as 1955, when a report in a New York newspaper indicated imminent foreclosure action on Sugar Ray's Harlem nightclub, which was called Sugar Ray's. And Sugar Ray died in 1989 at age 67. And finally, Fernando Vargas. Fernando makes the list, yeah. Fernando Vargas. There's Fernando. Fighters who lost everything. Yeah, I've heard that too, Tom. He liked to put his hands on his women. Sugar Ray did, yep. Fernando Vargas. Californian Fernando Vargas retired after dropping the final 3 fights of a 10-year pro career. But the drama of the ring has apparently followed him in the presumably calmer activities. Fernando was reportedly on the short end of schemes that cost $500,000 thanks to the dubious financial advice of the subsequently jailed Joe Pecora. Others who drank from the Vargas trough included an organization called Global Sports and Entertainment, which took several other former athletes for nearly $45 million after promises of high yield returns, usually reserved only for European dignitaries. Vargas has occasionally been rumored. Vargas was always rumored on the verge of a comeback, but that comeback never happened. But Fernando did end his career with 26 wins, 5 losses, 22 knockouts. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the similarities between Joe Frazier and George Foreman and Buster Douglas and Mike Tyson. Wow. Okay, let's see what that's all about. That's not even on it. Let's see. Is anybody coming in to the building? Mike Grimm, what's up, Mike Grimm? And Mike Mazik. I knew Mike Grimm and Mike Mazik were in here. They're already on the paper. Salute Mike Grimm and Mike Mazik. How are you today? You got Mike Grimm, Mike Mazik, Kong, the Drunk Irishman, Bruce Gas, Boxing Jazz, and more. Technique, and Miss Cass. Okay, so let's talk about this. 2 of the boxers that lost everything is on Mike Tyson and Buster Douglas. Okay, this is interesting. There we go. This is very interesting. Okay, this is the question. So, did Buster Douglas beat Mike Tyson the same way George Foreman beat Joe Frazier? Glad y'all asked. Let's talk about it. There was absolutely no resemblance between the way Buster Douglas fought Mike Tyson and the way Big George Foreman fought Joe Frazier. Absolutely none at all. Okay, let's talk about it. The question asks, was the Douglas Tyson and Foreman Frazier fight the same? The answer is absolutely not. Frazier simply could not beat George Foreman, no matter what shape he was in. Foreman was simply all wrong for Frazier. Now, Tyson could have beaten Douglas if he had been in shape and had a competent team in his corner. Now, I said could have beaten Douglas because the way Buster fought that night, it might not have, could have been the best version of Tyson. He still might have lost. But Tyson could have beaten Douglas if he had been in shape and had a competent team in his corner. Now, Joe Frazier, a swarmer, had to rush at Foreman, whose telephone pole jab held him at bay, while Foreman nailed him with hooks and crosses. Mike Tyson, who was a mid-range boxer puncher, was completely out of shape, unable to use his style effectively. And Tyson was reduced to doing raw one-shot attempts at a knockout, while Buster Douglas, a boxer puncher, circled outside and peppered Tyson with jabs and counters till the accumulated beating ended the fight. Okay, and now let's explain each fight. Okay, let's explain each fight. First, again, there's no similarity to Joe Frazier's and Mike Tyson's fighting style. Okay, no similarities. As Mike himself noted, there are no similarities between me and Joe Frazier. The only similarity is we are both short black men. That's it. Angelo Dundee observed, Muhammad Ali liked to fight in a room. Mike Tyson liked to fight in a closet, and Joe Frazier liked to fight in a phone booth. Frazier was an inside swarmer who cut the ring off and attached himself to your side, and as Jerry Curry put it, beat the hell out of you. Mike Tyson was, at his best, a mid-range boxer puncher, a volume power puncher, but not an inside swarmer. Okay? Styles make fights, and Joe Frazier was completely wrong for fighting a fighter like Big George Foreman. Completely wrong. Okay? Joe Frazier's style was perfect for boxers like Muhammad Ali or boxer punchers like Larry Holmes. And Frazier could also fight other swarmers or brawlers like himself. But there were two fighters in history who physically and stylistically were just completely wrong for Joe Frazier. George Foreman and Sonny Liston. Completely wrong for Frazier. And Liston might have been worse because Liston was a much better boxer, much better skilled boxer than Foreman. So Liston might have been much worse for Frazier, you know? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, the Bruno fight didn't look all that good either, Pong. Tell you the truth. Yep. Okay, so yeah. Joe Frazier was 5'11" with a 73-inch reach. He was a squat powerhouse who could lift half a horse. George Foreman was 6'3.5" with an 80-inch reach and could lift the entire horse with Joe Frazier on it. Now, both men could box, but one was 5 inches taller with a 7-inch reach advantage and twice the strength. Foreman learned from Sonny Liston how to control distance with his jab. Foreman had literally learned from Sonny how to fight as a pro. Part of what Sonny taught Foreman was to use his great strength to control distance with his jab. Both Liston and Foreman had jabs so strong they could literally stop a man in his tracks with the jab. Even worse, their jabs set up the incoming fighter for crosses, uppercuts, and hooks. Okay? Customato used to make fighters watch the Foreman-Frazier fight to show what happens to short fighters who rush inside on someone like Foreman. That's what happens to short fighters who rush inside on someone like Foreman. And Customato used to make his fighters watch this. Okay? Yeah, he did. He modeled his style on Liston. Yep. And the comeback version modeled after the old mongoose, Archie Moore. Years after Foreman fought Frazier, Steve Lott, one of Mike Tyson's team, Mike Tyson's Customato team, related how Tyson and Customato used to watch the Frazier-Foreman fight over and over. Lott would go on to say that Tyson loved that fight because he was awed by Foreman's power and Frazier's toughness, and how he kept getting up after every knockdown. Lott said, Cut sat alongside Tyson saying, "It's suicide against Foreman if you're short and fight a swarming attacking style like Marciano or Frazier." Cut said the only fighters who had a chance against Foreman were tall, rangy fighters who could fight him from a distance while moving away from him. In no way any swarmer or short fighter could beat Foreman by going inside against him. There's no way. Joe Frazier was a swarmer because he was short, squat, with a very limited reach. He had to get inside a bigger man's reach to have a chance to win. Had to get inside. Joe Frazier was a classic swarmer. At 5'11", with a 73-inch reach, he had no choice but come inside to fight a Foreman who was almost 5 inches taller with 7 inches of reach on him. If Frazier could have got inside, he would have stood an excellent chance, something George Foreman cheerfully admits to this day. But Frazier couldn't get inside, period. And that was the end of it. He was going to lose every time. Frazier could not, no matter how many times he fought Foreman, get inside Big George's reach. Foreman first stopped Joe dead in his tracks with his jab, that big power jab he had. Then with his other power shots, literally lifted Frazier off his feet 6 inches into the air and knocked him back several feet. He knocked Frazier down 6 times, and 6 times Frazier bounced right back up and kept fighting. Foreman said, "I was afraid he was going to get to me and kill me. I couldn't stop him. He kept getting up." Yeah, good point. it's because of what happened to Patterson against Lister. Cuss did that. Okay, now Frazier, the undefeated heavyweight champion with the impressive knockout record, had looked like a boy fighting a man against Foreman. Foreman easily held his own in the early exchanges, making sure to keep Frazier from getting inside where he could land blows in bunches and do some serious damage. Foreman's technique to do this was to use his long telephone pole jab to simply shove Frazier away from him to establish punching range. When in the few exchanges Joe got close, George manhandled him and tossed him around like a rag doll, a maneuver which technically is against the rules, but rarely elicits more than a warning from a referee, as was the case on this occasion from referee Arthur Mercante, Sr. But after the sixth knockdown, Mercante stopped the fight. And Frazier admitted later in life that there was nothing he could have done to beat Foreman. He had to come to it, and Foreman was able to stop him dead in his track every time with his jab, and then set up his power shots. So Frazier admitted there was nothing he could do. Now, Sonny Liston desperately wanted a Frazier fight in the 60s, but Joe's team refused it, okay? They refused to put him in there with Sonny Liston. And this was before Foreman. Like I say, this might have turned out worse, because again, Liston was a much better skilled boxer than Foreman. So Liston might have turned out worse than what Foreman beat Frazier. Now, Liston desperately wanted to fight Frazier in the 60s, but Joe's team refused it. Now, Frazier noted Rowley that his team had sense enough in the 60s. Later in life, Joe said, his team had sense enough in the 60s to turn down fights with Sonny Liston. And he said, they should have done the same with Foreman. He said that later in life. Back then, the Cloverleigh Management Group had Frazier's contract, and they had the final word over who Frazier fought and the direction of his career. After Frazier won the USA's only Olympic boxing gold medal in 1964, his trainer, Yancey Yank Durham, helped put together Cloverleigh, a group of local businessmen, including a sports writer named Larry Merchant, who invested money in Frazier's pro career and allowed him to train full-time. Now, Durham was Frazier's chief trainer and manager until Durham's death in August 1973. And that's when Eddie Futch took over. Eddie Futch was already an assistant trainer or something to Durham, but when Durham died, that's when Eddie Futch became the head trainer after that. Yeah, all those Olympic gold medals. And remember, Ali, Frazier, Foreman was back to back in the 60s. Remember, 60, 64, 68. Cloverleigh, by the terms of its management contract, had final word over Frazier's fights. And they did so until after the Courage fight in 1974. It was a 10-year contract he had with Cloverleigh. And they refused point blank to let Frazier fight Sonny Liston. This was before Foreman. I'm going to tell you why they let him fight Foreman, though. Now, Sonny Liston, when he was campaigning for a fight with Frazier, said, fighting Frazier would be like shooting fish in a barrel. And Sonny would have done to Frazier what he did to other fighters, control the distance with his telephone pole jab, and set him up for power shots. Yank Durham and Joe's team knew not to take the Sonny Liston fight, and they didn't. Now, Frazier, a young fighter, hungry and proud, wanted to take the fight at that time, but his management absolutely refused it. They were right. And like I said, Joe admitted it later in life. After the first Foreman fight, he said they were right turning down Liston, and they should have put him in there with Foreman. But Cloverleigh was in it to make money, and it took 50% of Joe's purses Now, the purse offered to fight Liston was not high, but the money offered to fight Foreman was significant. So Liston's purse wasn't high, but the money to fight Foreman was significant. So they said it was worth taking that loss against Foreman, but it wasn't worth getting on beat up against Liston. The money wasn't worth it, but the Foreman beat down was worth it. The money made it worth it. Now, while it was a rematch with Ali that the entire world was clamoring for at the time of the Frazier-Foreman fight, and that would certainly generate the most money, Joe Frazier was angry and bitter over his belief that Ali and the public had failed to give him his full respect and acknowledge he legitimately beat Ali in the first fight. And the way he had been presented as some sort of establishment hero, Joe would not go along with the Ali fight. He flatly refused Cloverlay's demand he fight an Ali rematch. He said he would retire first. So they made the Foreman fight. But he did agree to fight a genuine, highly ranked contender rather than another embarrassing Daniels or Ron Standard level opponent. This contender was Big George Foreman, then ranked number 2, and Muhammad Ali was still ranked number 1 after he had lost to Frazier. Frazier was the champion coming in, remember? So the 1968 gold medal winning Foreman was 37-0 as a pro coming into the Frazier fight. And it was a fight that would generate the most money other than an Ali fight. And also, Frazier believed he could win the fight. He actually believed he could win it. Frazier said, "I didn't see Foreman as being special." He wrote in his autobiography, Smoking Joe, he said, "Foreman was big, strong, young, and ambitious. Yes, all of that. But he was beatable just the same." Now, Eddie Futch, working in Joe's camp, Yanks Durham was still alive. Eddie wasn't the head trainer yet. Eddie Futch, working in Joe's camp, knew better. And Joe quotes Futch in his book. Futch said, "I tried to talk Joe out of that fight. Foreman was just all wrong for him." Okay? Let's take a look at Big George Foreman around that time. He was all wrong for Frazier. All wrong. Big George Foreman. Now, Angelo Dundee called it before the fight. He called it before the first Frazier versus Foreman fight. Angelo Dundee said styles. Joe's style is all wrong for this guy. Now, Angelo was rooting for Frazier because he didn't want to get the Ali fight messed up, which that's what happened. Because remember, Ali and Foreman fought. So Angelo said, "I was rooting for Frazier, but I've got this feeling Foreman will win." Why? Because he has all the attributes to beat Frazier's style. Foreman's got a jab like I've never seen on a heavyweight since Sonny Liston. He has a strong left hand. I mean strong. He can stop a man in his tracks with his jab. That was Angelo Dundee talking about Foreman. Foreman used his jab in many ways, as Sonny Liston used his. Only Liston, who had a 7-inch reach advantage over Foreman. Liston had Foreman had a 7-inch reach advantage over Frazier, and Liston had a 5-inch reach advantage over Foreman. So that's like 12 inches Liston got on Frazier. So Liston used his jab at a longer distance. It's not surprising that Foreman and Liston both used their jabs similarly, since Sonny Liston taught George Foreman how to jab. Okay? So, Frazier would not beat George Foreman if they fought 100 times. Frazier simply could not beat Foreman, no matter what shape he was in. George was simply all wrong for Frazier. If he fought him, it was always going to end the same way. In their second fight, Frazier abandoned his former style. Eddie Futch said they knew it would not work against George Foreman, just like the first fight it didn't work. So they tried a cautious defensive style, which they hoped would draw George Foreman inside. Futch said later that he always knew it would not work, but trying the same thing, which had failed so disastrously in the first fight, was not a good option. And Joe wanted to avenge that loss since Foreman was the only guy he never beat, said Futch. So we had to try. Futch had again tried to talk Frazier out of a second Foreman fight, but Joe was being offered almost $1 million, and it was only his third fight without Cloverleigh taking half of his money. Joe wanted the money, and as Eddie said, he was a warrior, and he wanted to avenge the only guy who had ever beat him that he hadn't beaten in return. It failed miserably. Frazier kept his distance the first 4 rounds and even taunted Foreman by dropping his hands and daring him to land a punch. But in the 4th round, Foreman took control of the fight, using his guess what? Powerful jab to force Frazier against the ropes, where he battered him with body shots. In the 5th round, Foreman landed a combination with Frazier against the ropes, closing with a left hook that knocked the bloody and battered Frazier down. Frazier, who had no quit in him, of course got back up and tried to continue the fight, but Foreman put him down again with a powerful right hand. Frazier somehow got up again at the count of 7 and wanted to continue, but Eddie Futch had seen enough and stopped the fight to prevent any real harm to Frazier. Because they fought 2 fights, total of 7 rounds, and Foreman knocked Frazier down 8 times, okay? Now, former college football coach Darrell Royal frequently said, "You dance with the one who brung you." Now, he meant he would use players and plays that had been successful in previous wins. Now, Joe's success, his signature win over Ali, all came with his fierce Foreman style. But, as Customato warned Mike Tyson, no Swarmer, no short fighter who had to get inside to hit Foreman could beat him. Cus told Tyson, no one in history could have, not Marciano, not Frazier, not Dempsey, not Tyson. You can't change physics, and Foreman was bigger, longer, and stronger. Frazier's size and style required that he rush inside the fight, and he simply was unable to do so without being hit. He had to dance with what brung him, like Darrell Royal said, even when he couldn't win. And when he tried something else, he lost because it was not him. Now, Mike Tyson and Buster Douglas. Let's talk about Mike and Buster Douglas. Okay? Yeah. Frazier was a heavy drinker too at that time. He was into partying and touring with his band. Yeah, I remember that. The Knockout. Remember that song, "Don't Let the Green Grass Fool You"? Kong, you remember that? "Don't Let the Green Grass Fool You"? That was Joe Frazier's marquee song. Don't let the green grass fool you. Don't let it change your mind. Okay, let's talk about Mike Tyson and Buster Douglas now. Okay? Or, you can't beat the number 6 contender when you party all night and never train. The story of the Douglas-Tyson fight. And there's the story right there. Look at Mike. Mike didn't train, didn't bother with conditioning drills, didn't take Douglas seriously. Partied all night, every night, drank, drugged, ran around with whores. Had long since stopped doing the things, little and big, which had made him a great fighter. His former trainer, his Customato trainer, Kevin Rooney, says Tyson's original team always knew that a tall, rangy fighter with good quickness and power would be a potential bad style for Mike. And to counter that, they devised a style which emphasized Mike's speed, both hand and foot, and his volume punching with power shots to neutralize the bigger man's advantages. If you drew a picture of the type of big man with speed and power that was potentially trouble for Mike, you would draw a picture of the Buster Douglas that showed up in Japan that night. So who was Buster Douglas? Yeah, but if you drew a picture of that big man Kevin Rooney was talking about, it would be the Buster Douglas that came to Japan that night. And Buster Douglas was only that person that one night, right? Yeah, Douglas was on that undercard. Mike Williams, yeah. So who was Buster Douglas? Buster Douglas was 6'4" tall with an 83-inch reach. He had good speed and real power and had superb boxing fundamentals. Buster grew up in a boxing family with his father, middleweight contender Billy Dynamite Douglas, putting gloves on Buster from the time he was a small child. Buster was not afraid of Mike. He had watched as Mike parted his life away, and Buster believed that a fighter with good movement and enough power to keep Mike out of his comfort zone could beat him. Buster had a 12-inch reach advantage over Mike and was 6 inches taller than Mike. Buster was a good boxer with enough power to mix it up when he had to. Buster's career before Mike Tyson was typified by his loss to then undefeated Tony Tucker. Buster was easily controlling the fight up to the 8th round. Then his failure to adequately train caught up with him, and Tucker finally began to hit him hard. At 105 of the 10th round, Tucker caught Buster with a solid right, and that was the beginning of the end. Douglas could not recover and stay away, and the referee stopped the fight 31 seconds later. Buster simply did not like boxing particularly and did not enjoy training, and so he did the bare minimum to get by. Against journeyman heavyweights, his talent allowed him to dominate, but against a better class of heavyweight like Tucker, his lack of conditioning betrayed him. Mike Tyson had no reason to believe things would be different with Buster against him, but they were, okay? They were different, way different. Now, what kind of fighter was Mike Tyson at the time he fought Buster Douglas? Okay, what kind of fighter was Mike Tyson at the time he fought Buster Douglas? Now, if Keith Scott points out very well, Mike never had a prime. Mike was only 23 when he fought Buster and would not reach his physical prime until a few years later. His prime years as a boxer should have been his late 20s, but his best years were a distant memory by then. At 23 years old, he was only a shadow of what he had been only a few years earlier. Why? Mike Tyson was a very complicated guy whose career is a cautionary tragedy and his fall a complex interplay of factors. Mike was effectively abandoned as a child. He was a feral kid, running the streets and trying to survive when Cus D'Amato came into his life. But Cus was not an unalloyed blessing. Cus only intervened and brought kids in who he thought he would be able to use. Cus wanted tough kids to mold into fighters. Cus did succeed in getting a young Mike Tyson to believe he might be able to succeed and become a fighter like his hero, Muhammad Ali. Cus provided structure, training, and a purpose in life. He did not do it out of the goodness of his heart. He had taken Floyd Patterson out of a youth home for delinquents for the same reason, to make him a fighter. Cus took a hefty percentage as the manager trainer. Mike had never had anyone really care about him for himself, and Cus did not either. Mike, as a prime fighter, was a beast. He had weaknesses, like all fighters do, but his natural speed and strength, coupled with very real discipline and training, made him one of the most dominant champions ever during his prime, short as it was. His original trainer, Kevin Rooney himself, has been very candid about what happened with Mike and the differences before and after the Cus team. Now, while Rooney worked with Mike from the start of his career up to the Spinks fight, Tyson was trained to be and was a volume combination boxer puncher. Rooney says, he punched fast and hard. That's a difficult combination to deal with, especially when those fast punches come in bunches, in good, solid combinations. Rooney goes on to talk about Mike's defense in those days, saying, he was elusive. The best thing about it was these guys couldn't hit him. When you can't hit somebody, that becomes very frustrating. In boxing, I'm trying to hit you. You're moving your head, and I can't hit you. And I'm like, what the F? That's what happened in a lot of Mike's fights. They couldn't hit him. So what changed? What changed? Bing, that's what changed right there. Okay? All the advantages and everything, good stuff about Mike, his original trainer, Kevin Rooney, was laying out. What changed? That's what changed right there. Don King and Robin Gibbons, and party all night, every night. Don King and Robin Gibbons came into Mike Tyson's life, and it all was gone with the wind. His original trainer, Kevin Rooney, tells what it was like up to Spinks' fight, pre-Don King, with Mike. Rooney said, we'd go to a health club at night, then we'd go to bed. When Mike was with me, there was no partying. There was no, well, I work hard, I'm gonna go have a few drinks and try to pick up a girl. That never happened. I would tell Mike, guess what? We got a title to defend, and you gotta be in tip-top shape. So that Mike Tyson, if he didn't cross channels and went with Don King, he would have gone down as one of the greatest heavyweights in history. And Mike was a gym rat. And after working out in the gym in the daytime, sparring, training, running, Mike would do film study at night. But all that went out the window. And Robin Gibbons, one of Mike's former Cus D'Amato appointed managers, Bill Caton, described what her influence was. Mike was taken to the cleaners by a woman who never loved him, who saw in him an opportunity to become famous, which she did, an opportunity to make a lot of money, which she did, and to use Mike, which she did. Bill Caton says, I don't think she ever loved him for a minute, but he fell for her. I've never seen anything like Robin. She got Mike to fire Steve Lott, who had been like a close brother to Mike. These are all part of Cus's team. But she decided she wanted to get rid of Steve, so Steve had to go. Between Robin Gibbons and Don King, they cleaned out Mike's life of anyone who had worked with him on his way up and who emphasized that life at the top takes constant work and sacrifice. Don King and Robin Gibbons changed literally everything. Instead of working hard every day, sparring, running, film study, Mike changed to drugs, drinking, and partying. His boxing style changed with his lifestyle. Mike went from a great fighter to a very good heavyweight, and he did it himself with helpful advice from Don King and Robin Gibbons. Don King and Robin Gibbons told Mike, He could have it all, do it all, party all night, be a bi-coastal celebrity, not bother to train, and still be heavyweight champion. That's what they told him. And Mike believed it. And his greatness was gone with the wind. Mike, a short, lightning-fast boxer with enormous power and incredible hand speed, was always vulnerable to taller, rangy fighters who could rotate out and away and control the fight with a jab. Under Kevin Rooney, he neutralized those fighters by being in good enough shape to go the distance with constant movement, bobbing and weaving to slip punches, and great defense. After Don King began and Rooney left, Tyson changed completely. Under Rooney, Mike had led to 56% of his power punches, which is 15 percentage points higher than the heavyweight average. For instance, against Trevor Berbick, Mike landed more power punches, 46, than the total punches that Berbick threw, 43, according to CompuBox. After Kevin Rooney, Mike's punch stats showed a complete change with lesser totals and lesser accuracy. Defense also stopped as the party began. Okay? Mike went from a boxer puncher with superb defense to a single shot headhunter. His generation's version of Ernie Shavers, looking to put opponents asleep with one shot and go home. He stopped setting up his knockouts and everything. He tried to get everybody out there with one shot all of a sudden because he wasn't in shape anymore. You know, Robin Gibbons and Don King stopped him from training and everything. Yeah, along with Don King, manipulated him to get rid of all of Custer's team. Sure did, Kong, all of them. Kevin Rooney was the last one to go after the Michael Spinks fight. Yep. Now, his former manager, Bill Caton, described in 1992 what happened to Mike after Don King took over. With Kevin Rooney, it was not just the fact that he was a great puncher. It was those great boxing moves he made to get into position. That's what I was just talking about, to deliver those devastating combinations. But then after Kevin was gone, a completely different fighter. He was not elusive. He didn't slip punches. He didn't bob and weave. He lost the skills that had been instilled in him under Kevin Rooney. He became a one-punch knockout artist, or tried to be. Hall of Fame trainer Eddie Futch assessed the before and after. Before Don King and after Don King Tyson. Eddie Futch put it bluntly. Under Custer Mato and Kevin Rooney, Mike Tyson was well-conditioned and ready to go all night. Lots of gas, great combinations, great defense. Under that parade of clowns Don King brought in, well, no defense, no conditioning, no combinations. If the knockout doesn't come by 6, Mike was out of gas. Now, what happened in Tokyo between Tyson and Douglas? What happened in Tokyo? What happened in Tokyo, Kong? Okay, let's talk about it. What happened in Tokyo between Tyson and Douglas? Mike certainly helped beat himself. Mike was by his best as a 6-round fighter because his style of constant movement and volume punching tires a fighter out quickly, and he wasn't in shape anymore. The Joe Frazier Rocky Marciano ability to both move and punch and get stronger as the fight goes on is extremely rare. Mike had it at one time, but his partying and declining to train left him without the stamina to move defensively later in the fight. And Buster capitalized on that with a capital C. 4 days before Tyson versus Douglas, Dave Anderson of the New York Times wrote an article on the fight, which was eerily prescient. Dave Anderson of the New York Times wrote, considering his competition, the only person who can beat Mike Tyson is Mike Tyson himself. By not training, by not caring, by not surrounding himself with experienced cornermen, chances are Tyson will quickly swat Buster Douglas into submission. Even so, reports from Tokyo of Tyson's training are enough to question if the champion is sabotaging his own reign. Any fighter or writer who was watching Mike closely knew his lifestyle was causing his skills to deteriorate, and sooner or later, a fighter would take advantage of it. And that night in Tokyo, Buster did. The fight itself. The fight itself. Okay, take a look at the fight itself. There's Buster swatting Mike. Mike's appearance of invulnerability came from the fact the majority of his opponents were beaten before they got in the ring with him. Michael Spinks, for instance, was so terrified of Mike Tyson, he refused to leave his dressing room the night of their fight, delaying it. In One Punch from the Promised Land by John Florio, he details that night. Emanuel Stewart had flown to Atlantic City to see the fight and went to check on Michael Spinks. Emanuel Stewart said, I went into Spinks' dressing room. They couldn't even get him to come out. He was so scared. He was a nervous wreck, really freaking out. Now, his brother Leon wouldn't have gave a damn. Leon was a free spirit. Michael didn't have the personality to come out of the dressing room. Not until 11:20 did Michael finally make his way to the ring, snaking through a celebrity-studded audience. He was knocked out in 91 seconds. But Buster Douglas was not afraid of Mike, and for once in his life, he was in tip-top shape. Buster was. Yes, he was. The Mike got something in there. But Buster was in tip-top shape. In addition, the death of Buster's mother, the only person who ever believed in him, left him determined to show that his mom's fate was justified. Buster used his reach and his jab to control distance and the fight. The fight was close up to Tyson's knockout because though Douglas had been keeping Tyson at bay with a strong jab, he was knocked down and nearly out in the 9th round. Had there been more than 8 seconds left in the round when Douglas went down, he would have lost that fight. But there were not more than 8 seconds in the 9th, and Mike had exhausted the last of his energy, and the rest is history. Could the result have been different if Kevin Rooney had been there? Could the result have been different if Kevin Rooney had been there? A better question would be, would the result have been different if Mike had actually trained for the fight instead of paying sparring partners when he bothered to spar to take it easy on him? The result might have been different if he had bothered to condition himself for a championship fight instead of partying with prostitutes every night along with drinking and drugging. But Rooney was not there. Mike didn't train. He wasn't in condition. And that is the way it was. And a very talented big man fought the fight of his life. Yep, there you have it. Buster George Foreman, Mike Tyson. George Foreman, Joe Frazier, Buster Douglas, Mike Tyson. Two very different fights. Joe Frazier could never have beaten George Foreman. I don't care what Joe Frazier showed up. Mike Tyson could have beaten Buster Douglas had he trained and came in better shape and not been partying every night, drinking, drugging, whoring. But let me say this too. It might not have mattered what Mike Tyson showed up. The custom motto Kevin Rooney trade Mike Tyson could have showed up. It might not have been good enough to beat Buster Douglas that night because Buster had the fight of his life that night. Had the fight of his life. But that's one of them what ifs. Mike was drinking and drugging and didn't train. So, a lot of people put it on that. Took some of the shine off Buster's win, because a lot of people say, well, if Mike had a train, they hadn't been drinking and partying, he would have knocked Buster Douglas out in 91 seconds. But I beg to differ. The same thing might have happened. Because remember, it was always said that a big, tall, rangy heavyweight with a good jab that could move, stay outside of Mike's comfort zone, and that heavyweight that they was describing was the Buster Douglas that showed up in Japan that night. But that Buster Douglas only appeared once in life. We never saw that Buster Douglas again. But he was in Japan that night. So I don't know if the best Kevin Rooney Customato Mike Tyson that showed up, he might have still got knocked out. But then Buster went and got knocked out by Holyfield. What was it, like the third round or something? Yeah. And that was that. But Buster did get to be champion once in his life. And, he makes that list of the boxers that lost everything. Mm-hmm. But Buster worked his way back. Yep, doing fine now. And everything. But for one night, he was king of the world. Well, for a few months, because he didn't fight. He fought Holyfield a few months later, so yeah. And then he kept fighting after the loss to Holyfield, but fought a few more years. Never made it back to. I don't even know if he was ever in a championship fight, but never won a world title again. But Buster Douglas, Mike Tyson, biggest upset of all time. In any sport, not just boxing, any sport, I would say. Yeah. Yeah, diabetes, Kong, that's right. Yep, he almost died. Mm-hmm. Al Booger in the building. What's up, Al Booger? Ooh, we looked at some boxers that lost everything today. Yep. And then we compared Buster Douglas, Mike Tyson, George Foreman, Joe Frazier. Similar size differentials and everything between all those two fighters in each of those fights, but that was about it. Like Mike Tyson said, the only similarities me and Joe Frazier got is we both short and we black. That's it. Yeah, and they were two totally different fights. Mm-hmm. Like I was saying, Joe Frazier could never have beaten George Foreman. Never. Just bad style. But a well-trained, conditioned, ready to fight Mike Tyson could have beat Buster Douglas. Mm-hmm. But that's Monday in the history books. Appreciate everybody for stopping by today. Yeah, that's true, Al Booger. They did both have a hell of a left hook too. Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm. Yep, they did. Yeah, but yeah, against Foreman, Frazier just couldn't get close enough to throw that left hook because Foreman always had that telephone pole jab waiting on him, and he just had too much to go to. And then once he stopped him, he said he was stopping Frazier dead in his tracks with that jab. And then once he stopped, here come the crosses and the overhand rights and all that kind of stuff coming at Frazier. Him and Foreman fought twice, remember, and 7 total rounds. Foreman knocked Frazier down 8 times. So that's a terrible style matchup. Because Frazier didn't have a choice but to get inside. Just too much to go through. To get inside on Big George. And rightfully, Frazier's team, Sonny Liston wanted to fight Frazier in the 60s. Remember, we were talking about that. And Frazier's team was like, oh, hell no. Sonny might have done him worse than George. Because like I said, Sonny was a way more skilled boxer than George Foreman. So Sonny might have done him worse than George did him. And his team didn't take the Sonny fight because the money wasn't worth it, but they took the Foreman fight because the money was worth taking the beat down. But later in life, Frazier said they did the right thing by turning down the Sonny Liston fight, and Frazier said they should have turned down the Foreman fight. Right. But there's some of the great boxers from the golden age of the heavyweights. Frazier, Foreman, Sonny Liston. Okay, we got Just Do Boxing coming up next, but I appreciate everybody for coming through today. Al Booger, Mike Mazik, Mike Grimm, Kong, the Drunk Irishman. Appreciate all your input too, Kong. Appreciate you 1,000,000%. The Drunk Irishman, Bruce Gas, Boxing, Jazz, and more. Technique, and Miss Katz. Yeah, Technique and Kong put a couple of top 5 heavyweights in there. Both fire. They had the same fighters except Technique had Rocky Marciano and Kong had Jack Johnson, but it was Ali, Lennox Lewis, Foreman. I can't remember now. But yeah, they basically had the same list, but they just substituted out one fighter. It was a good list. There we go. No, that's not it. Back near the top. Well, here they go. Okay, Kong's top 5 were Jack Johnson, Joe Louis, Cassius Clay, /Ali, Larry Holmes, and Lennox Lewis. And Techniques was Rocky Marciano, Joe Louis, Ali, Larry Holmes, and Lennox Lewis. So basically the same, except Technique had Rocky and Kong had Jack Johnson. Okay, but I appreciate everybody for coming through today. Appreciate all the input, fire input today, man. And everybody, Just Do Boxing is up next, and we'll be back tomorrow at 2. Because if it's Monday through Friday, 2 p.m., it's the Box Story bringing you all that boxing history. Oh, man. Mike got a fight going on in his spare room. His wife trapped 3 feral cats. Now they trying to get him out with the cat rescuers. I'm in the basement smoking. Oh, man. Okay. Good luck, Mike. Wow. And this is fight. Speaking of good, this is fight week for the Shakur Teofimo too. Yeah, good card too because who is it? Keyshawn and Jermaine Ortiz is the co-main, and Carlos Adames is on the card defending his middleweight title, and isn't Shoo on there too? Yeah, great card. But everybody have a great afternoon, and I will be back at 2 tomorrow. Appreciate y'all 1,000,000%. I was reading Mike's posting.